thank you very much, Your Worship, for joining us to grace this occasion. And we really do appreciate it, and we are all humbled for your
Good afternoon, colleagues, esteemed guests, distinguished stakeholders, Honorable MEC. My name is Lydia Bebe, and I am honored today to be representing African Wildlife Economy Institute, as well as Stellenbosch University. Today, I'll be presenting on unlocking the full potential of the wildlife economy. As someone who's currently pursuing a postgraduate degree that focuses on incorporating the One Health framework into sustainable game meat production and supply, I am passionate about the intersection between conservation, economic development, and sustainability. In this presentation, I'll take you through some of the key challenges, opportunities, and the risks that shape the wildlife economy sector, while also reflecting on how we can collaboratively unlock this economy. Now, sorry, I forget that I'm supposed to be going back. Okay. Now, the global population is rising, and according to the United Nations Populations Division, it is estimated that in 2050, there will be a total of up to 9.8 billion inhabitants, all requiring food, water, and a sustainable environment to thrive in. Now, as we know, with an increase in global population comes an increase in pressure on resources. And the biggest question that we are facing right now is, how do we manage the rising need for resources while also preserving the planet's biodiversity? The Global Biodiversity Framework, particularly targets 5 and 9, set the stage for balancing this act. And the Sustainable Development Goals, as well as other regional and local strategies, support these targets by emphasizing the need for sustainable solutions in feeding growing populations, and also ensuring food security and responsible consumption. Now, one such solution that is underutilized are wildlife economies. Wildlife-based economies offer an exciting solution, but like any other solution, they also come with their own set of challenges and obstacles. So I'd like to pause for a moment, because Honorable MEC did say that we should try and make this engagement as engageful as possible. I'd like to pause for a moment and invite you to take part in a quick poll. If you look into the screen, there's a QR code. This QR code will take you to a set of challenges that we have identified around wildlife economies. The question is, what do you believe is the most pressing obstacle preventing wildlife economies from reaching their full potential? I've taken the liberty to print out some of the QR codes in case technology decides to embarrass me on the big stage. If you may kindly assist me with distributing these. So please take a moment to participate. If you use your phone camera, you scan the QR code, press on the code, it will take you to a link, and you're supposed to choose at least 3 of the challenges that are outlined there that you yourself believe are the biggest obstacle to us reaching the full potential of wildlife economies. And later on in my presentation, I'll touch on some of these challenges while reflecting on the South African context. The overview of the wildlife economy. The wildlife-based economy encompasses both plants and animals, and it is a diverse and multifaceted sector. It brings together ecotourism, sustainable hunting, biodiversity conservation, and wildlife product trade. And a few examples of wildlife products that I've highlighted on the screen are biltong, mopane worms, which are a delicacy in many communities and which we refer to as amacimbi in my native language. And my favorite, the baobab fruit, also known as umkomo in my native language. I remember vividly how when I was growing up, my grandmother used to dissolve these fruits with water and she added them into our porridge to give it some flavor. Yes, the flavor was sour, but we still found it delicious. But what I find very inspiring is how other people have innovated the baobab fruit into products such as the baobab jam with ginger. This, ladies and gentlemen, goes to show how wildlife products have got so much potential in becoming more than just what we see them to be. These examples highlight how wildlife economies are not only rooted within heritage, but how they are evolving with modern innovation, which goes to show how we can look at something that's used in local communities and find a better way to make a byproduct that we can export to other countries. Beyond its socio-economic value, the wildlife economy supports conservation efforts and it also contributes to environmental sustainability. In South Africa, the wildlife economy is central to national goals, with the principles of sustainable development and biodiversity conservation. Through initiatives such as the National Development Plan 2030 and the Global Biodiversity Framework, we are working collectively to find ways to ensure that there is the safe, legal, and sustainable use of wildlife economies. Now, these efforts are central to ensuring that biodiversity conservation goes hand in hand with socio-economic benefits. In terms of opportunities and benefits, wildlife-based economies present unique opportunities that stretch across multiple sectors. Firstly, the sector provides significant socio-economic benefits through the creation of jobs as well as the improvement of livelihoods. According to the African University School of Wildlife Conservation, it is estimated that in 2019, a total of 418,000 jobs were created throughout the sector, which therefore shows how this sector was able to contribute meaningfully to local communities and poverty alleviation. Secondly, it provides direct economic incentives for conservation. How, you may wonder? When communities benefit financially from wildlife economy activities, they are motivated to protect and manage wildlife in a responsible way. Biodiversity conservation is also another benefit that we see through wildlife economies. The sector's conservation footprint is significant and it spans up to 17% of the country, which then prevents the transformation of protected lands into other alternative land uses, which therefore results in the conservation of up to 4.6 to 7.2 million herbivores. South Africa's experience in managing protected areas shows how sustainable practices can go hand in hand with economic development. Lastly, wildlife production trade presents a growing economic potential, And this can be seen not only in animal products, such as game meat, but also in plant-based products. In my community where I come from, roots from indigenous trees are used for male health, and elephant dung is also used as a remedy for pregnancies. Developing these value chains offers us opportunities to integrate the local communities into this economy while also ensuring sustainability. Challenges to unlocking the wildlife community's full potential. I personally believe that when it comes to South Africa, the issue is not about the absence of laws or regulations or standards, but more about ensuring compliance and effective enforcement. Gaps in monitoring and effective enforcement hinder the sector's growth. For example, the continued informal trade of wildlife products makes it difficult for sustainable practices to be measurable. Secondly, or additionally, the absence of accurate, relevant data that is comprehensive to measure the value, the true value of the wildlife economy is missing, which also further creates a challenge when it comes to effective decision-making and policy development. Stringent export regulations, particularly for wildlife products such as game meat, also hinder South Africa's ability to reach high-value international markets. And I believe that addressing these barriers could enable South Africa to reach its market's full potential. I keep talking about engaging the local community. It's because it's that important. Engaging local communities meaningfully is a very important thing that needs to be addressed. Yes, some initiatives have been successful, as is the case of the Nambiti Private Reserve in KwaZulu-Natal. But broader public awareness is still needed, so much that the normal person on the street understands the true value of wildlife economy, and they are also able to actively participate. Now, while we acknowledge that the wildlife economy in South Africa holds immense promise, it would be unwise for us not to recognize that unlocking this full potential comes with risks. And it would be wise for us to look into those risks and ways to mitigate them. For my presentation, I have identified 3, with the first one being over-exploitation of resources. Yes, this can happen. And to mitigate this, we must strengthen science-based adaptive management practices that prioritize the long-term health of wildlife populations and habitats. Secondly, we should ensure inequitable access and fair distribution of benefits. And this requires effectively engaging a diverse range of stakeholders, including local communities, in the decision-making process to guarantee inclusive development. I believe that by coming for this engagement, we are already moving one step in the right direction in fostering the kind of collaboration that is needed to unlock the full potential of wildlife economies. Finally, wildlife economies are vulnerable to external shocks, such as economic downturns and emerging threats, as is the case of the trophy ban, COVID-19, and changes in regulations in other countries. I believe that if there is no cohesion between what we are doing here and in what other countries believe, we will forever have challenges in unlocking its full potential. So, by proactively addressing these risks through robust mitigation strategies, we can unlock the full potential of wildlife economies in a sustainable and inclusive way that benefits all of us. Now, I'd like to thank everyone who took part in the poll earlier. Throughout my presentation, I did touch on some of the key challenges. Now, let's see what you believe are some of the challenges. Hopefully, technology doesn't embarrass me. Oh, it does. Ideally, if people did participate, it's supposed to highlight what you believe to be the challenges. I'm not sure how many minutes I'm left with, Mr. Speaker. Maybe I can give a moment or two for people to participate. Great. So you can scan this on the screen, your phone, and then it will take you to a link. That link will have you respond to the following questions. Thank you for your participation. Has anyone in the crowd successfully managed? Just want to see if it's working. It's far, okay. Anyone with one of these, could you kindly share? In any case, if it fails, I will engage with each and one of you throughout the engagement so that we can, I believe that from addressing this and responding to those questions, we can have your opinions on what we can look at as we move forward, on what challenges we should address as we move forward. Whether it's improving coordination, enhancing compliance, or addressing market barriers, these results or your results will help shape how we can unlock the wildlife economies. In conclusion, I look forward to hearing your opinions and possibly working on solutions together. Let's work towards making Northwest grow and South Africa's wildlife economies grow. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Bebe, for that wonderful wisdom that you shared with us. Can we then move to a presentation by Mr. Colin Engelbrecht? Are you ready? You want the moving one? Okay. So let's welcome Colin, please. Let's welcome him. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. All protocols observed. Thank you very much for the opportunity given to us this afternoon to address you. We should be up and running shortly. Hopefully technology doesn't drop us here. All right, so there we go. My name's Colin Engelbrecht. I'm the current chairman of Wildlife Ranching South Africa. We are the spokespersons for the wildlife rancher. I am also a farmer in the Northwest province, just outside the town of Hartbeesfontein. So who are we? We're made up of provincial and regional interest groups in each province that give us a nice footprint in representation. Our model, based on breeding, at first and utmost, we breed the animals. Secondly, a very important part of our model is the hunting. So we're breeding to supply the hunting market. Thirdly, the products that are derived out of that. So we've got breeding, hunting, and the products that come out of that. Tourism, very, very important aspect of what we do. More than 87% of anybody visiting this country wants something to do with wildlife, be that to visit a park, a private zoo, or a wildlife ranch. And then lastly, mixed farming. One of my slides down the road will show what we did in finding out that a lot of farms today actually do have wildlife on them. So mixed farming is an integral part of what we do. So who are we? We're breeders, we're hunters. Out of the hunting comes our products. Out of that flows the tourism, and we are part of mixed farming. Key messages about our industry. We are the renewable and sustainable gold of Africa. I'll repeat that again. It's the renewable and sustainable gold of Africa. And why do I say this? Through sustainable use, and we've heard that this afternoon. Look, when we started hunting rhino in this country, what happened? The shaded areas, suddenly the populations expanded tremendously. So through sustainable use, that's what it caused. We need to outperform other land use options. Otherwise, why are we doing what we're doing? I'll give you an example. Rand per hectare. If I can beat cattle farming, then I'm in the right industry. If I can't do that, then why are we doing it? So important. To grow the industry, we need to outperform other land use options. And our biggest threat to wildlife is if it becomes valueless to rural people. That is a major, major threat. If it becomes valueless, we've got a big problem. Can you? Sorry? Excuse me, guys. Can we have the sound up? Sorry? Yeah?
Wildlife Ranching South Africa is the foremost entity of the uniquely South African agro-sustainable wildlife economy. South Africa ranks as the third most biodiverse country in the world. Through the work of pioneering ranchers passionate about our wild heritage, private game ranchers have achieved many successes in the restoration and rejuvenation of the country's wild spaces. We represent the private game ranchers of South Africa, who, through responsible management and sustainable use, enhances and safeguards the functioning of ecosystems, genetic integrity of species, and the biodiversity of South Africa. Marginal land, including land that is unsuitable for crop or livestock farming, is continually being rewilded through the intense intervention of game ranchers to produce wildlife that is regenerative, self-sustaining, and economically beneficial in many different ways to the prosperity of South Africa, such as contributing more than 100,000 jobs and food security across the value chain. Today, private wildlife ranchers in South Africa have 3 times more game than all the protected areas combined. When wildlife on private ranches is included in the animal census, South Africa has more animals than any other African country. By this measure, no indigenous African animal is at risk of extinction within our borders. This proudly South African game ranching model has been proven time and again to be the best at securing a successful and sustainable future for wildlife on the continent. Wildlife ranching not only keeps South Africa beautiful and bountiful, but contributes meaningfully to the conservation of land, plants, and animals. Wildlife ranching is inextricably part of the circle of life. It is our passion, our heritage, our game.
That in a nutshell sums up what we do. We're a reasonably new sector, if I can ask, or put it to that way, because we're not recognized anywhere. But let's talk about that. Why we say we are reasonably new? Because under the Game Theft Act of '91, we got the ownership of the animals to farm with them. So we are a young industry. Now, if you look at this map, all the green areas, or yellow, if it comes up on your screen like that, are the protected areas. But you also notice that the game ranches are not on that map. Why? Because we are not recognized as a sector. So where are we? On this map, if I read there, the agricultural regions, you'll start at the top: cattle, diverse, forestry, fruit, grains, etc., down to vegetables. Where are the game ranches? They're not included. Because why? We're not recognized as a sector. We are the champions of wildlife conservation. South Africa now has more wildlife than existed 100 years ago. 20 million hectares of marginal agricultural land has been converted into productive habitats for wildlife. To put that in perspective, that's the size of Great Britain, or approximately 25% of the total agricultural marginal land in Southern Africa. So, the mixed farming I spoke about earlier, we did the Sustainable Wildlife Economics project. We did it in Limpopo and we did it in the Eastern Cape. So the whole goal was to ascertain how many ranches ranched with what in those areas, to actually put people down onto the ground, and that's what they did. So they surveyed 137 properties, 852,000 hectares, and they employed 37 people to do that. And what was interesting in the Eastern Cape, they thought at that time, before we did this, that there was only 650,000 hectares that was farmed or ranched that had wildlife on them. But yet only 37 properties delivered that. And what was the outcome? 55% of all ranches have mixed farming. So they have some form of wildlife on them. What else came out of that? The jobs created per hectare. So double the national livestock farms is what a wildlife rancher employs. So it employs double the amount of people. And that's fact. It came out of a survey. This is the Limpopo survey, 155 farms, 862,000 hectares, and the same results. So of the estimated 20 million head of game today, 80% is, or 16 million of them, is in private ownerships today. And again, we'll put our money where our mouth is. Under a wildlife rancher, no animal will go extinct. South Africa alone, 88% of Bontebok are found on private ranches, 12% in the national reserves. 97% of the Orobi, 3% in national. 95% of roan antelope, 5% in national reserves. 87% of black wildebeest, 13% in national reserves. And so it goes on. 90% of the blessed buck are found on private ranches. 65% of the world's rhino population is found on privately owned game ranches. 97% of sable antelope on private hands, and 3% in national game reserves. So in 1995, the wildlife ranchers were accused of breeding animals in small camps, and they were inbred and etc., etc. So what we did was we managed to get a whole lot of ranchers to give the blood of the animals, and it was given to Prof. Tim van der Hoft, who is probably one of the leading buffalo people in the country. And what was the end result that came out there? The biggest diverse genetics are found on private hands. The most inbred is in parks. Now we've done the same with the lions. We did a genetic mapping of that as well, and that's exactly what's come out. The most genetically found diverse animals are in private hands compared to protected areas. Okay, I showed you the map where we're not included on any of the game ranches in the country. So what we did was I took the buffalo farms that are registered in this country and plotted them. So there are 3,257 registered buffalo farms this year. When I say this year, we've lost one that's been deregistered, and probably we've added another 5. So that figure is roughly, it's going to differ by about 2 farms. And that's what it looks like. Those are all the buffalo farms plotted in the South African map. Now, if you had to overlap that on other agricultural sectors, surely we should be recognized as a sector, be it as an economic sector or agricultural sector. We need the recognition. There it is. Our contributions are not recognized. And this is to prove it. When the top species came out, the revised one, they were going to add sable to that list. The sable's numbers that they used were the red data list of the IUCN, which placed the sable population in South Africa at 1,300 odd. They didn't count the sable in private ranches. Yet we saw that 97% of them are found in private hands. So what does that equate to? In 2018 and 2019, total 1,500 trophies, sable trophies were exported out of South Africa. So that means the whole population, we exported them. So we hunted the whole population. That's what it's saying. In 20 years, 18,800 animals have been sold in live auctions. That is not counting the sable antelope that's been sold privately. So, the failure to consider and calculate the game ranching industry constitutes to a statistical failure of trade data alone of 1,700%. So how do we get that? To take the 1,300 divided by the 18,800, you get that. Yet we're still not recognized. If you have a look here, since the Game Theft Act in 91, look what happened. South Africa's in the green, and we're talking sable antelope here. So we started breeding sable. So look at how it's increased and increased and increased. And look at this. Look at the quality of animals that are being bred here compared to Zimbabwe and Zambia, where it's taken a decline. We are now the leaders in Africa. So what do we farm with? We farm with swag, soil, water, air, and grass. Besides the water, the most important thing that I farm with is grass, because without that I can't sustain my animals. What are the key differences between wildlife ranching and protected areas? The wildlife ranching model is sustainable livelihoods. I repeat that, sustainable livelihoods. The protected areas is biodiversity preservation. And when I think about preservation, I think about this. You know, when you preserve something, you put it in a can. That's what makes me think of. Secondly, out of the sustainable livelihoods come biodiversity conservation. That's the second thing. So remember, we are commercial farmers first and utmost. And out of that, we're conservationists. Why? Because we have to produce animals that are representative of the species and of a very high quality. Because I'm a commercial farmer, I have to compete with my neighbor. So biodiversity conservation is a spin-off out of that. In the protected areas, it's environmental services. That's what comes out of there. The one is a business model, the one is not. Our key message about the agro-sustainable wildlife economy, it's a renewable and sustainable gold of Africa. If we look after and nurture it, we can see that it creates enormous wealth. We heard the figures given around the table today. The job creation is enormous, double the cattle industry. Secondly, to grow it, we need to outperform other land forms. So rand per hectare, it has to do that to be sustainable. And when it becomes valueless to rural people, that's our biggest threat. We heard today, without recognition, the wildlife ranches, we need that. We need to be recognized as a sector, be it under agriculture, but we need to be recognized. And secondly, the MEC spoke about enabling legislation. We need enabling legislation to continue to do what we do. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Colin, for that wonderful presentation. We are left with one presentation. It is a humble request. It's a humble request from the Department of Land. Just a second. They just wanted to bring it forward. Are we ready? Land Affairs? Are we ready? Okay, so let's have that one presentation and then we retort back to our questions, comments, and answer session. All right. While we welcoming the Deputy Land Claims Commissioner, we will be able to finish on time. Let's welcome Madam. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you and good afternoon, leadership. Thank you very much to the events organizers for allowing us to be pushed onto the agenda this afternoon. I am here to talk about a positive story for the Northwest Province as requested by the head of the province, Mr. Lengani Bokhatsu. I don't know whether you know Mr. Lengani Bokhatsu. It's his province. Let me first ask him to stand up. Usually I would say he must welcome me. I'm from another province. Mr. Lengani Bokhatsu, they don't know you. I was just being naughty. So I'm here to talk about a very positive story, which is the story of conservation claims in the Northwest Province. It has been 30 years of land claims this year. Remember, the Restitution Act was one of the first pieces of legislation that was enacted after the 1994 elections. I'm just waiting for the present. Okay, thank you very much. There's the presentation. So after 1994, it's a rights-based program. And I always say when I address people that restitution is about transformation and redress. Remember, we are creating black landowners in various sectors. We are creating black landowners in conservation spaces, tourism spaces, agriculture, forestry, mining, and all sorts of spaces. Then we get our mandate just to do some of our public relations work. We get our mandate from the Constitution, Section 25, and we are one of the pillars of land reform. There you will see is land restitution. Other land reform programs are land redistribution and land reform. I also want to highlight our role is, and it's very important, that second paragraph for you to understand. Our role is to solicit, it is to investigate, and then to resolve through mediation and settle a land claim. Once we are done settling a land claim, we basically have a landowner, a new landowner, that is now responsible for the specific space. But also, it's very important to know we are the only organization that deals with land claims. And that as a land claim is against the state, we are empowered through legislation to deal with it. As part of one of the developmental goals within government, we see improved initiatives by sectors, departments, and stakeholders to provide support when it comes to post-settlement. Let me then talk about the business process of land claims. You will see first there was claims lodged in 1998. Then we research your claim. There's a two-step process, first research and then a gazetting and a final research. Then we go through a process of verification, verifying you. That's why where CPAs, are there CPAs in the room? I didn't even check that. Are there community member CPAs in the room? Yes, thank you. Good to see you. CPAs will attest and testify about the process of verification as to how they had to link themselves to originally dispossessed households. Then we come up with a process of you selecting whether you want land restoration, financial compensation. A settlement package is then developed and your land claim is settled. I just want to clarify, there's land claim settled and then there's land claim finalized. Now, a land claim settled is the reward is approved for you. A land claim finalized, you are already in possession of the title deed, basically, just to clarify the two. Then I want to talk about statistics. I'm still doing some public relations. You will see we've settled over 83,000 claims so far. We have settled mostly financial compensation claims in the region of about 26 billion, about 26 billion of land costs and about 5 billion of grants we've settled. You will then also see when it comes to the type of land that we've transferred, that we mostly have transferred private land, and in private land is more than 2 million hectares, state land is just about 700,000 hectares, total transferred is about 3 million hectares of land. When you look at the Northwest Province, you will see about 418,000 hectares of private land and 151,000 of state land that have been transferred in the Northwest. Now let me talk about conservation claims. So we acknowledge as the Commission, there are about 6 priority sectors for us as the Commission where we are settling land claims in. These are conservation, agriculture, sugarcane, forestry, mining, and within the urban spaces. We also acknowledge the contribution the tourism and the conservation section makes towards the GDP, and we also acknowledge statistics about the number of protected areas that exist within the country. And because of that, we need to acknowledge with the settlement of claims the role that we play, that we don't contribute anything negative towards the sector. Now, if you look at the northwest line, these are unsettled conservation and tourism land claims. You will see there's a zero number, and I will expand on that. Zero number of outstanding claims, zero number of estimated hectares, zero number of estimated amounts. However, we acknowledge there are some claims within the Northwest Province which we must finalize, where there's some CPAs that needs to be transferred to. Because of the Northwest unique experience, when we reviewed the mode of settlement, which we call the mechanism or settlement model, we studied the Northwest cases. In the previous slide, you will see most of the outstanding conservation claims we must still settle on Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and KZN to some extent. And there's key lessons that we needed to learn for sustainable settlement of these projects. We studied about 3-4 years the Pilanesberg project. Just to recap, this is a project where there's about 4 CPAs that exist. I don't know whether they are in the room. This is also a claim where most of the properties, or actually all of the properties, are in the Pilanesberg area, and all of them are state-owned properties. And then this is basically looking at about 57,000 hectares of claim. And basically the park, as we understood it, is known for its dramatic landscape and abundance of game. I must be honest, I've only been to the park for 2 hours for one day, so I can't really testify to the park. When we engage our stakeholders and our CPAs on key issues and findings that we need to take into consideration for us to have sustainable settlement models for other outstanding land claims, some of the issues that they've highlighted are that the co-management model is well suited for protected areas. Most of you are probably familiar with co-management. It is also said that yes, there are some challenges with the co-management models, but the challenges are more about shared management and bringing CPA up to the same level with boards and executives in these various entities. There was a recommendation that partnerships between the Commission and the various provincial and national Department of Environmental Affairs must be explored. We must also look and consider that CPAs function more autonomous when it comes to some decision making, because they feel or they felt that they are the landowners. Also, there was a need identified for independent transactional advisors that are outside the Commission, which are not Commission employees, when it comes to the time of negotiating of settlement models, that such transactional advisors are appointed, and that the multiple action points that comes from these transactions must be scrutinized by independent advisories. Further key issues and lessons that were learned is that it is very good to settle claims within the conservation space and so forth. But we must also acknowledge, and this came very strongly from not necessarily CPA, from sector stakeholders and partners, that the requisite research needs to be done, taking into consideration the specialty skills regarding business and ecotourism that is required to make this project existing and for it to have a lasting environmental impact. A second one, especially when it comes to concessions, Concessionaires needs to be convinced to buy into land because concessionaires felt it's a risk to work with CPAs as future landowners, and we must look into the role of the years of contracts and also for government facilitating this. The third one was the risks that exist with any commercial enterprise and operation anywhere way. The pre-feasibility work that gets done are effective but does not necessarily explain the risk to what we call claimants or CPAs or help minimize the risk level. Lastly, the Commission should approach each operations more, and should it encounter problems with claimants, we must look at a more effective and efficient manner to intervene when it comes to these areas. So there were 3 from the Northwest models, and Pilanesberg was the model we based the case on, but we had other 8 cases across provinces where we undertook the basic literature review originally. And 3 conservation and tourism land claim scenarios have been developed, which I'm going to talk to, and what is appropriate for these 3 scenarios. The first one is your protected areas and your protected environments. Remember, these are mostly your state-owned and some private-owned land. It has special nature reserves, it's national parks, it's protected environments, world heritage sites, natural forests, mountain catchment areas, and so forth. 3 recommendations came out very effective that works for it when it comes to settlement. These are co-management that I spoke to, the land lease model, and alternative land. I will touch on all these ones at the bottom. I'll explain them further. When it comes to land under biodiversity management agreements or biodiversity partnership areas, these are privately owned land with agreements between the landowner and local conservation authorities. Yes, co-management works, but with a combination of land lease and strategic partnership. And then when it comes to unprotected land with tourism facilities, these are privately owned land that has got tourism facilities. It may be part of a bigger conservation area or standalone conservation area. Land lease and strategic partnership came out very strongly. But the issue that stood out here was the issue regarding concessions that is seen as more effective for the scenario. Then to talk about all these issues, I think most of you are aware of co-management. It's the land right as a loose asset. Remember, it's transferred into the name of the CPA. The CPA holds the land in title and it represents claimant's interest. Usually you will have a joint management board for joint management governance. And here, what came out strongly was the issue about claimant operating companies or income generation activities that are not clearly understood and separated from the issues and roles of the CPA. The land lease, I think all of us are familiar with the land lease. Remember, we are used to dealing with one landowner. Now you have a CPA here in which name the land is transferred. The CPAs have got difficulties quantifying the role of the conservation authorities and tourism companies. That needs to be effectively explained when it comes to the land lease model. They feel it's my land, I'm responsible, why should I be engaging with you, and so forth. Then there's the strategic partnership. Again, the name is the CPA holds the land in title. The tourism companies must be separated from any new business companies, and also the issue of independent expert advisory panels. This was actually seen as an expensive management exercise when this one was formulated. And then lastly, the concession models we are familiar with, the former landowner and government working with the CPA. There's a concession agreement, there's a concession tourism operator, a tourism facility that develops and manages the tourism facility. This is seen as the most desirable but also an expensive one to implement. Now I've spoken about our mandate as the Commission. I've spoken about the positive story of the Northwest, where there's not really claims to be settled when it comes to the conservation space. I've spoken about the models that have been developed, which other provinces are now working on, and the lessons we've learned and documented. I want to now speak about the importance as to why this exercise had to be done. Now, if you look at statistics in the Northwest, you will see remember there were two lodgement periods. There were claims lodged in 1998 and claims between 2014 and 2016. So in the Northwest, remaining is about 200 claims. Then there's a blocky next to it, which indicates where the claims are in the business process. But the third blocky is the one that I want you to focus on, in that most of the claims that are outstanding is actually in the agricultural space. There are, however, some few to be determined claims, and that is the issue regarding that conservation sector felt the safety for investment at that point in time when it comes to land claims. I always, before I end off, remind people about the second lodgement period. The second lodgement period happened between 2014 and 2016. And we have about 8,000 and another 3,000, about probably 12,000 claims that was lodged in the Northwest. That someday will have to be researched, that business process I spoke to, that will have to be verified and will have to be settled. These key lessons and models that we develop will be of assistance at that point in time when it comes specifically to the issue of claims that we call the new order claims. I'm basically done with my presentation. Before I finish, I just want to hear Mr. Bokatsu, as the head of the province, do you want to add anything, any final comment before I close? Apologies, Chairperson, I didn't ask permission to do that. You must be quick now.
No, thanks very much. I'm not going to waste much time. My colleague has presented the presentation from the Commission, but what is significant from us as the Commission is who is interested to partner with communities. Because as you have indicated, almost 600,000 hectares have been transferred to our communities, and all our parks, we do have communities who have benefited from them. And we believe that today's discussions or in the evening, you'll interact with us so that we can indicate all the potential land available, especially in conservation and biodiversity, because most of our claimants communities are now turning these biodiversity farms into cattle farming. And it's something that my colleague, I think, will emphasize when it comes to the threat that the Commission is bringing about to affect the growth of the province in terms of the settlement. So we are excited that we are part of this thing, and we believe that you shall be interested to interact. The whole team of the Commission is here, so that, and some of our CPAs are here who are affected by the process that I'm referring to. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. From the side of the Commission, let me hand over to the Chairperson. Thank you very much for allowing us to present this afternoon. Chairperson, much appreciated.
Thank you very much, Deputy Chief Land Claims Commissioner, for that important discussion. As we said earlier on, there is a number of communities that have dedicated their land for conservation. And as some of you may be aware, we have got a 30 by 30 target, which is a global obligation for each country to dedicate 30% of their land for conservation. And we cannot do that without the partnership with the industry, with communities and government. On that note, let me humbly take this opportunity to hand over to our Honorable MEC to share with us a few remarks. Over to you, MEC.
Yeah, thank you, Program Director. My apologies, I have to rush to other commitments, but I will come back because I really would have wanted to be part of the engagements, but I felt that I must also throw my 2 cent submissions, especially after the presentations. Which one will take it that these presentations are like they were prophesized. They were prophesized in the sense that I have not found any irrelevancy in all the submissions. They match exactly with the vision and what we have engaged on as a department when we were in our strategic planning, which I think we are also going to have the strengthened DDMs when it comes to also wanting to get this to find expression on the operational SDB of municipalities for purpose of making sure that we reach and we dig down to reaching our people. But what one is unapologetic about, that I have made a commitment even to the Premier to say, it is to happen and it is due and it is now, it's on this last presentation. This last presentation, it's very clear that we would have made a mistake of not actualizing the history and not drawing comfort from the provision of our own constitution. And this presentation outlines a research that says it is up to us as government and through this department to make it happen for our people. I'm still challenging the commissioner. You see, I see a nice presentation on paper that says Northwest, they, you know, they have done everything, it's 0, 0, 0, 0. But what is important is about not being convinced that the land that has been acquired, especially the land that is on our protected areas, can we safely say it is benefiting our people as it now, or it has benefited our people? If the answer is no, then it then says we must get to our house, HOD acting and the team, that we must not agree to signing of any 5-year strategic plan that does not have indicators that enable us to make our people get it right. Which I think we have already started. I'm glad that I'm speaking and the Mokgosi, they are here, Mokgosi Plan is here. We have already started because I said to the commissioner that in the spirit of collaboration, which is a priority of the GNU, we will have to agree that we enter into a memorandum of understanding. The main focus should be on how do we then tap into enabling our people to get what is due to them on the land that has already been acquired. Because they are not benefiting because the land is in the hands of government because it is on the protected areas. And the law states very clear that we have to facilitate because we must take in charge of the core management of the land. But what is it that we are doing? It has to come out very clear. I'm glad that I'm saying this in the presence of the board, Parks and Tourism. The Parks and Tourism Board exists mainly to make sure that we realize what we have missed out for the past 30 years of democracy. Part of which is to deal with this issue of how do we enable, I think it's about 13 claims, out of which 5 is within the protected areas, which then says it hits here that we must make it happen. And in the MOU that I have always received briefings every 8 o'clock in the night, I'm taking it that after this interaction, because now we would have made it very clear with the participation of all the stakeholders, we will have to reach a conclusion that tonight I must say to the Premier that the MOU have been signed. There's an SLA that talks to how are we going now to reach out to consult in the sense of our own empowered, the legislation that empowers us as government to make it happen to our people. So, you would not have to go to Free State and those other places that you always go to before we get to this business and make it to get complete. Otherwise, we will tell you that you have done nothing to our people. But we must also caution our people in terms of representation of the CPAs here that they must also get to understand the role of government to organize. And one of the threats that are highlighted here is how it is being coordinated and how it is being completed and how it is being accepted or received by those that it is due to them. So they must also understand that as much as government we have interest of facilitating the benefits, they must also be mindful of the fact that we are all in this together and they also have to receive responsibly. It then says the threats of instabilities in our CPAs is something that needs their own attention because our role is to facilitate and give it to them. But there are differences and there are issues where they happen to bring more of instabilities is what they also need to self-correct so that harizana go gabone re krile ba setse ba siame gona mmereko wa rona ha se go sekisa dikgang tsa bona gona mmereko wa rona ke gore ba bone what is due to them in terms of the post-settlement, which is doable and its time is now. I will cite an example of other CPA opportunities that were kicked by the CPAs themselves. Look at what is happening go Ramutsire, go what 8, go Lukubu. When government tried to facilitate and avail, look at how they behave. But we are confident that working with the Khosisa Rona, getting to understand it better, also allowing the land reform and rural development also to do validation in terms of the status of the CPAs, we will get it right. We will finally get it right. Our people need clarity. Our people need to join hands with us as government. Time is now. If you can't do it now, you might lose everything in future. The Northwest perspective has been flagged during our strategic plan when we were looking into those affected CPAs that has got the opportunity for government to tap in to facilitate and assist. We're also having the board that was appointed by the MEC specifically to deal with issues of core management and contracts that are also reflecting here as a threat or as a way of being a barrier to enable our people to benefit what is due to them. It remains our responsibility through the collaboration that we are going to have with this department, rural development, land reform, that we must look into the existing contracts. There's no contract that is going to make it difficult for our people to either assist in beneficiation or to benefit when it does not respond to the needs of our people today. That kind of a contract will need thorough attention of either be reviewed, amended, or brought to a point of making it work for the people. And time is now that we are going to get to that space of saying, no, when you have this contract, okay, well and good, it was signed, it is nice, but whose interest is it serving now? If it doesn't serve the interests of the people, you know, the occupancy rate in those areas that are already there of today and of yesterday are different. And other issues that affect us directly as a department through the parks and tourism. Let me see as a meeting on this coming weekend. We're going to introduce another board, Yago GLR, with specific mandate to collaborate and work as a subsidiary of Parks and Tourism to particularly deal with these issues of get all the core management contract that has been signed in the Parks and Tourism Board, get all the investigations that has been done, including the investigations or the researches that were conducted by Department Abo Rebohats. We are government, we are one government. We can't have this department having conducted a research that speaks about what is this research that you have done on Pilanisbeek, Rebohats? The master plan that exists there. It has to be looked at, and if it is outlined well in terms of our MOU, we need not to come up with any other master plan, but to utilize the existing master plan because it is for government. And that is why the board has been deliberately constituted such that it has Khosi, it has a representative of people and parks, it has got representative of the disabled and the women, the youth, and whoever might be an interest party, so that they are able to represent people well, give feedback, and not represent their own interests, but the interest of the organized structures where they are drawn from. So basically that is where we are, and I'm very confident that we're going to get it right. We just have to bite the bullet. We know it might not work well, and it might leave some of us being unpopular, but if it leaves me alone unpopular, but it leaves our people with the benefit that is due to them, of course, that will be good. If we do it for purpose of good governance and interest of the public, then it is doable. So that's where we are. The MEC has also invited last week all the concessionaires, especially around the area of finances. We have deliberately postponed that meeting because of some of the apologies that were forwarded. But because of some of the investigations that were done in the past, and because of the resolutions of the board made it very clear that the department as the shareholder must intervene in enabling the board to make it happen for our people in terms of the concessionaires to understand the role they play in terms of commercialization of our parks, in terms of what is due to our people, in terms of how they should relate, because all of us are having interest in that space, and it will not be correct that some are not equal when it comes to what belongs to them in as far as shareholding is concerned. We are also interested in benefiting there as government in terms of the revenue enhancement. We are quite aware of the dividends and how they disclose. We are very patiently getting into that space, and we are confident that we are going to get it right. We are not going to fight, but we will have to sit around the table and agree that if you are saying you have this period of stay here and you are not making profit, we would not want to rob you. Then we must agree that we must put to a test by putting another person who will make profit in a different approach, because it then says your strategies are not working for our people. That is going to be done in good faith and in the spirit of good governance and the benefits to our people. For all the addresses that I have made in gatherings of either staff meetings or strategic plannings, I made it very clear that the outcomes of the elections being a democratic process for this national and provincial elections have made it very clear that our people have lost confidence in this process of a democratic product being government. People did not turn out to polls. People did not do it as expected. Just in the Northwest, of the 3.7 expected or potential voters, only 1.7 registered to vote, and less than 60% of the 1.7 reached out to the polls. So it is clear that what happened in 1994 and those other 5 years is, in between, there's something that we have done wrong as government to have this contract with our people through this democratic process and through the constitution of our own country. And time is now that we have to self-correct as government. Our people has given us the last chance, not as political parties, but as government. Because if it was good for a particular political party, we would have had a party that got the outright majority and we would not have the government of national unity. But because our people are showing us that they have lost confidence in us, it remains our responsibility, those of us who are directly given a responsibility, to make it happen to our people. So we would have betrayed our people if we don't apply the laws that are before us, and in this case is to actually conclude the issue of the co-management and all those contracts coming from here, passing through all these areas that you have dealt with. And I'm hopeful that we are going to have a session with the CPAs where we are not going to discuss the conflicts, but we are going to tell them how best are we available to assist them as government. But if they still have issues and conflicts, and it's for another department. On the land they have acquired, and we have interest in making that because we want this process to be concluded. I am also, I was also impressed by the presentation here, DFFE, Ndate Kurum. You know, when people present, if it was of my wish, it would be that when I invite you to my sessions, I must tell you that you must speak the language I want to hear, so that I invite you from time to time. Because you speak the language I wanted to hear, because that language turns me into a relevant person to the people I'm representing. So you were spot on touching the nerve of what is due to Northwest in terms of unlocking opportunities and showing them to my fellow councillors and mayors who are here to say, the drawing board, colleagues, it is no longer about tenders. Tenders are things of the past. Our institutions have collapsed because people are fighting for something that is not sustainable. But what we are presenting here today as opportunities are natural, are before us. We can work it out without having to get pain and sleep. Re robala re tima di mic tsa di council like we are seeing all over there representing Northwest. You know, I'm trying to invite colleagues that we have other corners where we can unlock and benefit, and I'm talking beneficiation that is sustainable. I'm not talking the by, I give we the three quotation here. I'm talking the natural resources that are before us that we are also, as part of nature, called to convert them through taking care of them, but also drawing especially the benefits that are going to transform our life. So Remo now I'm not in that one. In my department, we don't have tenders. You can think aloud of any tender that can come from Department of Economic Development. But there are opportunities that can create thousands and thousands of jobs. All the presenters who presented here gave out a clear outlook on opportunities, especially on how we can work it out to unlock and get the jobs being created in a sustainable way, including the skills development. I'm glad, Redenga, that I have always challenged you on something that I do not know. Issue how many professional hunters do we have as the Northwest? Now that today we saw something, I don't know how is HOD acting and the CFO, I don't know how are they going to escape from my meeting when I asked them why are we not able to get at least also our people, 2, 3 of them to be also professional hunters. I don't know how is Rebo Hazu and Ray Richard going to escape from the fact of where then do we have the market for them? Where do we locate them in their own province after having trained them? How do we structure the requirements of the remaining land that is there that can be used for them? How do we then locate them and make use of them in terms of the game donation and transformation policy that we are to engage on here? Where do we get them find the expression? I don't know how that meeting is going to end in that Denga, but I think it will end very nicely to say, but our people are going to benefit at the end. And that has to be drawn from the leaders who are coming from municipalities here, because that is through the district development model that we are going to draw our people at those points and make them work. It is not about friends, it's not about relatives. It's about the people of the Northwest who are out there in the space and are capable and are willing and are passionate. For that, training as a trainable. I'm also glad that one of the presenters presented about the phasing out of the cargo, and that has actually robbed us as Northwest the status of our trophy hunting. The MEC is engaging the Minister of Tourism to say, whilst we agree that we might not be having the proper infrastructure in terms of the airports, but if we can just collaborate for purpose of tourism, by the way, I must indicate to you that we are to host as a country the G20. And the Premier is very confident that through this department, we must also bid as a Northwest to host the G20. And it will have to happen. We might not be having enough of our infrastructure, but we are the richest and very unique in the features that can make us to confidently say we can host the G20. So I am registering progress in as far as the collaboration with the Ministry of Tourism in enabling at least the Pilanesberg to have the landing strip that is working, and also to have part of the provision of Mahikeng Airport, especially the provision of the cargo, so that the hunting that is happening in our province, the trophies must be registered in our province. The statistics that are raised here must not be South African statistics, but they must be South African statistics drawn from the Northwest. Ramo spacing sale, and I think through these collaborations, we are going to join hands with the private sector. I have a number of WhatsApps. I would not read them aloud, but it is very clear that all is well in the house. People are excited that we will have to engage. The MEC will just prepare a room to say we are raising hands on how we want to come forth. We're coming from this private sector. We want to join hands with government. We can bring in this. It is doable, and we are prepared as the government, irrespective of discriminating any. But when it is about transformation, it's about development, it's about economic activation, you are more than welcomed to work with us in the Northwest. The doors are opened, and once more, I might not be with you here because I have to leave, but later on I will join you and hope I will find the discussions still hot. But the acting HOD and the team of the men and women from different programs of the department, as well as our partners. All of us here now are one. When you introduce yourself, even if you are coming from the beekeeping factory, you must just say beekeeping factory DEDECT, so that you have this thing of partnership with us, with you, so that whatever that you say or process, you have us in your heart. Ke a leboga bagaetsho once more. Qolang.
Let's appreciate our MEC again. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you very much. As the MEC indicates, when the MEC speaks, it's not just remarks, these are marching orders. And I hope we were all taking notes across the board, government, private sector, and our communities. Thank you very much, MEC, for that guidance. We have got, what is the time now? Yeah, we have got a full 30 minutes for discussions where we're going to open up the floor and allow ourselves to interact so that we look at all the discussions that ensued earlier on by the presenters, so that we don't lose any question that we want to ask to understand in-depth intricacies around each area that was presented. So we had presentations by myself. There was a presentation by Ntate Diane Mpo on hunting and wildlife trade statistics. There was a presentation by Lydia Bebe on unlocking full potential of the wildlife economy. And there was also a presentation by Colin Engelbrecht from the industry on game ranching in this province in particular, but also looking at the overall industry that we work on. And lastly, there was also a presentation by the Deputy Chief Land Claims Commissioner on the status of the CPAs in tourism and biodiversity environment in the Northwest Province. So those are the areas that we're going to deliberate on. So when you want to make an intervention, please rise. I'm sure you've got many microphones, technocrats. We don't have. So I'll use this one. So you rise, you then indicate your name, the organization or the institution you belong to, and then make your point. Now, when you make your point, don't take us through a, a huge background. Just cut it to the chase. Tell us exactly your comments, briefly if it is a comment, but if it is a question, just go and tell us outline the question so that all the speakers do not lose what you are saying. Where are my speakers, the presenters? So that, oh yes, please make sure you take all the questions. You will hear that this question is related to me or not. Okay, the floor is open. Let me allow us to engage. The floor is open, whichever direction. Let me recognize the first input. If you can go there. Who else? I will take about 3 or 4. Let it go. Oh yes, number 2 in that last row. And then let me see the third one. Comment, questions, anything. You're more than welcome.
Thanks, Mr. Matibe. Good afternoon, colleagues. My name is Klas Mokaba. I'm from the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition. I'm responsible for advocacy and policy coordination in a branch that is responsible to develop policies and legislation in the area of credit, intellectual property, gambling, liquor, you name them. I just want to raise 2 questions really out of curiosity to Mr. Gianni, just to get a breakdown in terms of perhaps the companies that may be involved in export, especially your small medium enterprises, really basing that on what the MEC has actually said, regarding empowering, for example, your local, business. So I just want to get a breakdown in terms of the export that are happening in as far as your SMM is concerned. The second one would actually go, I need to actually pose this to the NEC. Unfortunately, in her absence, anyone who can actually comment to this, that will be appreciated. The presentation that has been made by wildlife farming, wildlife ranches. Yes, I just want to, just get the comments in terms of what is the government's position in terms of the issues raised by this association of them not being recognized. Would there perhaps be any policy initiatives or strategy to actually address or maybe move towards recognizing based on the information that they've actually tabled? Thanks, Mr. Matip.
Thank you very much. Let's recognize Ntate on the other side.
Thanks very much, Mr. Matibe. I do have a few concerns here, but the first one would be
Libito for record. Libito.
Oh, Mafuko Lelaka, Deputy Chairperson of Bapolomiti CPA. Mr. Matibe, I'm a bit concerned that there was a gross omission in regard to an overview of what biodiversity is or ecosystem is. It's a serious concern to me. I'm also concerned that considering the fact that we are dealing with biodiversity here, we are dealing with ecosystem here, why this meeting has not sensitized us to potential dangers to biodiversity itself, so that we are able to look around and take precautionary measures in that regard. I would also want to say that while, without derogating anything from the vision that all speakers, including you, Dr. Mative, that you have so excellently and succinctly articulated, I also have a bit of a concern that why, as we were deliberating, we were not also simultaneously touching on critical strategic mechanisms that will then drive forward means and ways by which we are able to come up with a groundwork. And then the other thing, and that would be the final one here, would be, why are we not focusing again on ways that will then assist us to explore and exploit economic viability of the value of diversity within our local environment? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for those insightful questions. Let's recognize the colleague here.
Afternoon. I'm Soli Letlape from Kaka hunting team. We are about 10 black hunters in our group. So we just want to know how can the government assist us on how to do a PH course. Oh, thank you.
All right, let me go to my, next to my friend Peter.
Mr. Matibi, thank you very much for the opportunity. I think you know what's coming. My name is Hannes Wessels. I'm the president of the South African Predator Association, SAPA named in short. And I've got some of my members as well in this hall today with us. And we as lion breeders are very concerned on the stance of the government against the captive breeding lion industry. For the last 2 years, uncertain times for us as breeders. We've heard wonderful stories today about transformation. We want to open an airport, we want to export. Mr. Matibi, the department issued 700 permits for lions to be shot or hunted last year in this province, Northwest. Now you want to close the industry. Our concern is, we can tell all these people all these amazing stories. CITES does not recognize the export of lion derivatives or trophies at this moment. But our department is still issuing hunting permits because there's a demand for the product. We've issued on the 2nd of November last year to the department a solution how to clean the industry, to properly regulate it, to enhance it, and to assist with transformation. But still, the government's message on the radio, we're going to close the industry. Everybody that wants to voluntarily exit should contact us. It's a concern. We need answers. Okay. Please, Mr. Matibi.
Thank you, thank you. Let's recognize that hand, I think this should be the last one in this round, and then we allow the colleagues to respond.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Makena, my surname is Mwatu, from Melody Safaris, a licensed wildlife trader, hunting outfitter. Mr. Matibe, it's a little bit different for me because you just spoke about me, and I want to repeat what you said about me. But now it's a little bit difficult. I don't know how to word it. But what Councillor Karani said earlier today, when he says empowered people empower others. You said we shouldn't talk about ourselves. I would like us to actually re-implement what was done on me to others. You know, I consider myself to be a good specimen, and that was a collaboration of the private sector and government working together. Because that was Mr. Jonathan Denga, Mr. Jacques Sienakal here next to me. Mr. Jacques Sienakal, I did my internship with Mr. Jacques Sienakal. He put me on a 1 year, 6 months program, and I was shadowing every morning. I would go out with an experienced professional hunter, and he said to me, look at firstly, how they rig their cars, how they hunt different animals, what approach. From everything that you learn, come up with your own model. Then, when I was done, in 1 year, 6 months, I had my dangerous game license. When I was done, I was then, Mr. Denga with your department, together ended up now creating route to market, where you now exposed me to the international clientele. And obviously, yes, now I'm happy Mr. Bohatu is here. I've been communicating with his office and they haven't been talking to him. But now the missing puzzle obviously is just for me to get the resources and hit the ground. So that is a model that I personally would say to government, both national and provincial, it's a suggestion. If you copy this model and you implement it, it will work for people, because what I have realized that a lot of people have received land from government, but they were not equipped as they were supposed to be, which is why now it's more like setting people up for failure. It was actually a suggestion. If you take this model, implement it nationally, it will work. Thank you very much.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, those are the first, before I take the second round. So let's allow our presenters to respond. Maybe let me start with you, Mpo. You can also touch base a little bit on the question that was also directed to, yes.
Thanks, Chair. Yes. Let me start with the one from trade and industry on the exporters, or what we call, they usually they use agents that handle the shipments and try and find the best flight available for the client that you have. I don't have a list of those people, but I can try and find out about what are the names of the companies that are out there. There's a lot of them. I don't think there's a lot of SMEs in that space. It's just one space that it needs to be explored. The value chain of hunting is quite long, from the farm where the animal was hunted to the transportation between the farm and the taxidermist where the animal is going to be processed. Even there, we need to make some inputs and changes and transform and get people in that industry involved. From the people that are going to ship it until it's received by the client on the other side of the country. All those steps, we need to make some kind of input in terms of transformation and getting people involved. At the moment, we are there, but not as strong as we would like. But we can get you a list and find out from the industry colleagues and partners what are the names of the company that are currently being used. Because we are from trade and industry, it will be useful to see who's playing a role now, how many of them are SMMEs, and where we can look to expand on that part. And there's a colleague that side that asked about the PH course and how they can get trained and all that. There is about 5 directors of schools that offer training, and I know that in Northwest they've done a couple of trainings in the past, and I advise that maybe you speak to your province about if there's any future plan to do more training. The other time, Sunparks offered a similar training to anyone who wanted to join in that training. So you can either pay for it yourself individually, it's about 20,000 rand to have a PH training for a 10-day course, or you can wait for a program that's run by government where they input. Even our national government, sometimes we do call for people to come and register, and then we pay for you and you go do the training yourself. So there's all sorts of opportunities, not only in this province, but also in other provinces where government involves in training. But we can make the contact details of the training providers available if you want to do it privately, or you can also approach your government to see if you can get a time when they have a call for people to come and do more training. For the more difficult one from the Lion Breeders Association in South Africa, I think as a general, I think our position is quite clear. It's not confusing in any way. We have a clear direction in terms of policy that was passed last year, that we are looking to phase out the captive bred lion space. That's the position. It's not phased out yet. So number one, there's no permit that will deny you of. You can still get your hunting permits. That's not illegal at this stage. Number two, there's no country that you cannot get your lion into that is not illegal. It's still legal. CITES has not banned any export of lions. It's still legal. It's the South African government position that we need to phase out the industry, and that policy decision was already made at the national level through Parliament, which means between me and Mr. Matibe, we cannot change that Parliament decision. What we wait for now is how are we gonna do that? What process are we gonna follow? And it must be fair and just, and we must transition. And how long that's gonna take is not gonna be easy, because we must change legislation. We must know how many lions are in South Africa. There's about 8,000 lions in South Africa already. How are we gonna go from that to zero? How are you gonna phase that out? That's something that you must work together with us, because there's an MTT, what do you call it?
Ministerial Task Team.
Ministerial Task Team to deal with those kind of issues. How do you get there? But in terms of a policy, it's already passed by Parliament. There is nothing much that we can do to change the policy position. That you can influence through a different process, not this particular forum. But in terms of how we get there, there's a process in place. There's an MTT that you can engage with, which is appointed by the minister to deal with people that have suggestions about what other options they want to put on the table. But from a policy point of view, it's quite clear. We are phasing out. We have started with a couple of changes to policy. We are heading to making those things happen. We have just published a notice to say that no more new facilities should be established. That is now up for public comments. After that process, we won't be allowing new established facilities. There's only going to be existing facilities until we find a way to, or agree on a way with the industry to phase it out. That is the decision that's made, unless there's a different policy change in the future, which we don't have an answer to currently at the moment here. Yes, so Matiba, you'll touch on the replicating the Makena experiment. And no, I think I'm done from my side. Those are, I think, some of the things that were relevant to me.
Thank you very much. Deputy Chief Land Claims Commissioner, is there anything you want to say? You covered? Oh, you're covered. Thank you very much. I think there was a question raised around how are we dealing with the threats to biodiversity, but also to ecosystems. As you know, we have got terrestrial ecosystems, which means those that are on the land. You have got marine ecosystems, that is in the sea. You have got estuarine ecosystems, which is a transition between fresh water and seawater. Then you have got fresh water ecosystems. Those are in the dams and everywhere. All of these ecosystems that I've mentioned, they are all under threat. That's why at times you find that a tortoise is wearing a plastic bag on its neck, swimming in the sea, because of the pollution that come down the river to the river mouth to the sea, and then entangle our marine ecosystems. So you're quite right. The good thing is that with the working for programs, there is working for coast, working for land, working for this and working for that. They are meant to address those challenges. But with the dwindling resources, we'll need to find other alternative source of budgets or revenues or financing to support this working for programs. So we can't agree with you, Mose, on the issue you raised. Those are critical. Because if we don't have biodiversity, we don't have the future. Some people say one tree is responsible for the breath, for breathing fresh air of 15 people. Now, if we sit as Northwest citizens or South African citizens, and we see people cutting trees and we are powerless, then we have got a problem. It's like what I saw when I was coming here. Some criminals chopped down the municipality lights. What do you call this thing? The pole lights? Oh, I wanted to kill those people. If I ever found them, if I was to find them, they will be in trouble. I'll tell you why. It is because we cannot, as a nation, become a laissez-faire society wherein everything is a common property resource, so which means it belongs to no one and no one takes responsibility. If we see somebody doing something illegal, it is our duty as citizens, responsible citizens, to say, stop this mess. So please, biodiversity will require a collective effort. I think there is a question again, I think it comes from, just to complement what Mpo said around pH. We have got a lot of professional hunters in South Africa, a lot of them. But we hardly have fully trained and fully qualified professional hunting outfitters. It's a difference. A PHO has got the right to take the hunting package to any market elsewhere in the world. When we go overseas, we don't take professional hunters because they're not allowed to go to that space. That's why I would encourage Northwest Department, next time when we go to these international markets, at least send one official, especially those who are doing law enforcement, to make sure they visit every booth of South Africans to make sure everybody is compliant. Because all in all, we always go with about 160 booths coming from Africa, and 106 come from South Africa alone. So you can imagine the task of making sure we don't have some people who are taking chances, because we do have some who are also making a lot of illicit activities at that platform. But at the same time, you've got very good people like Jack Senecal and a lot of others who are really doing a fantastic job at that platform, which we must commend. What was the other question that we might have missed? Strategy. I think you spoke about strategic focus. We should come up with groundwork, groundbreaking work, looking at economic viability issues. Yes, by all means. Whatever the MEC has given us matching orders on is to make sure that we don't have things that are on the paper, but we have got something that has got impact, that changes people's lives. And I think that is the focus of the HOD, MEC, and our Premier, and the entire executive, to make sure that we deal with hunger, poverty, inequality, and all those challenges. What was the other one? I'm sure we might have covered. Oh, MEC's position on issues of being recognized. I think that was the question that was raised. Very, very important. In the biodiversity sector, recognition of any activity comes in the form of a legislative tool. So that is the first layer. The fact that there is NEMPA, which is the National Environmental Protected Area Act. The fact that there is NEMBA, which is the National Biodiversity Management whatever Act. That is the first layer. Now, one of the discussions we have been having with the industry is why is the industry, when they face drought, when they face natural challenges, they are not getting the support like what we have under the Department of Agriculture. We have recognized that request and efforts are underway to develop a policy. In fact, we have triggered that exercise. I was given that responsibility to make sure we lead that policy, to make sure that if, for instance, there are natural disasters, if there is a drought, whatever, we take the model of agriculture to make sure we support our farmers. That is recognition at that level. Now, the third thing is that there is this concept, and Paul will remind me, the res nullius, this Greek word, res nullius, which simply means that animals, wild animals, it's a common property resource. It doesn't belong to anyone. The res nullius. If we go back to the history of this country, Game Ranches Foundation establishment started in the 60s and took a traction in the 70s, and actually in the 80s, that's when things were happening. So this is what is required. One, in the South African, maybe even before I go to the South African context, if you go to the rest of Africa, I'm talking about our continent, every animal belongs to the state. People who have got concessions in Tanzania, in Mozambique, in Zimbabwe, in Botswana, wherever, they know that in all our neighboring states, every wild animal belongs to the state. You are given a concession, a lease agreement to have a concession there for a number of years, which then incentivizes you to bring hunters to be able to generate revenue. But animals don't belong to anyone. However, in the South African context, we have decided that if you have got a certificate of adequate enclosure, something which is inside, you are able to utilize it as an incentive for you to generate revenue. That one is no. But if that animal escape and go to the neighbor, then you have lost the game. I'm sure the industry knows about that. They know that. And that is why there has been a lot of theft under codes of game. If one guy doesn't have adequate enclosure, the animal escapes, and then or they lure them with nice citrus products during drought. The animals then are gone. You don't have anywhere to report to. They are gone. So South Africa has got 13,500 game ranches. Out of the 13,500 game ranches, only 6,500 have got certificate of adequate enclosure. Can you see we've got a challenge as well? So which means we still have got to make sure that we reach the 8,000, the 9,000, and to make sure everybody complies. So that the animal inside of your property, you can be able to hunt, you can be able to utilize for the good. But it doesn't mean you are then able to do whatever you want. Because at the end of the day, we are all belonging to the state. It's like somebody who says, I can beat my wife simply because it's my wife, I paid lobola. Ho, 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 utatsena matatein. You will be in trouble. Because that will be regarded as gender-based violence. And when you do gender-based violence, you are actually a criminal and the state will take action. So if you have got animals in your own adequate enclosure and they suffer, NSPCA will come in and visit you and will take you to the washers. So you know that. So recognition shouldn't just be the word. We really must work hard to support the industry the best we can. But I'm saying the primary recognition lies there. And there are a lot of other journeys that working with the industry, we can resolve the problems. Okay. All right. Who else? I'm giving the last round. This is the last round and we close. Is this the second hand? I'm not going to give the person I gave earlier. I'm going to take new hands altogether. Only new hands. Let me start with you. And then we go to the second row. Then second row, 1, 2. And there's 1, 2, 3. And then we complete this side. Oh, and there's one over there. Thank you. Just cut it to the chase. Okay. What is the question or the comment?
Mr. Matibe, my name is Kabelo Lekalakala. I'm a director and founder of Bitsa Ostrich Farm. Bitsa Ostrich Farm is a black neck, our native breed ostrich farm located in Brett in the northwest. Since its establishment back in 2019, we are encouraging the production and consumption of ostrich in the land. 5 years to date, it has been a very colorful experience, I must say. However, I enjoyed your presentation. It was very much encouraging given my background. My request to you is simple, Daddy. Just a commitment. I'm anticipating a friend of mine who's also quite significant player on a global scale in ostrich production. He's a global, one of the significant commercial ostrich farmers. He will be coming to the country. I would like us to have a meeting. I kindly request a meeting with you and Dr. Denga, actually. If you could facilitate that, I would really appreciate that. Just to have an initial interaction, give you a background of my journey to date, give you my little understanding of the industry as it stands, so far as inclusion and transformation is concerned. The man is very much committed, understanding the plight of HDI demographics in the space. He's very much committed. He already have networks and access to markets globally to incubate and develop aspiring ostrich farmers. So I kindly request a meeting with you in Pretoria. Thank you very much.
Sure. Thank you. Next online.
Good afternoon, and my name is Mutumi Moloto. I'm the Velgeval CPA chairperson, which is one of the CPAs in the Pilanesberg. Maybe mine is a comment to say that we really welcome the MEC's initiative, where she indicated that they, the sentiment that if you are not making money, maybe you need to move so that we reassess the strategy. Because indeed, the parks are not making money for the landowners. Everybody else in the value chain is making money and getting richer by the day, and we are just standing there watching, and we used to fight. But we are now trying to redirect our energies to more productive and to doing things for ourselves. But it is very hard. It is very hard because even now, I'm hearing from the MEC that there's a board and we are reading in the newspapers. Nobody from the Parks Board is telling us anything. Our relationship is deteriorating by the day. When you ask them questions, it is as if you are fighting. And we are trying to say there is no way that we can coexist in this space if we do not talk to each other. There is something that you will learn from us. It is not just about fights. We do not want to fight. We just want progress for our people. And no matter how you come to them to say, we have the skills, we are here, please come and assist us, we have ideas, this is what we would like to do. There is no assistance coming from them, and even we have funds. We have funds lying in Tatebo Khatu's coffers for years. Those funds are not earning any interest because we do not have the skill to then move to the next progressive stage. But we do welcome that at least the department is now recognizing that we are really not making any money and we do not have the skill indeed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Next online at the back.
Good afternoon. My name is Mokgosi. I'm from Northwest Beekeeping Association. My concern is that we talk less about bees, and bees are the most pollinators, and they keep our biodiversity alive and ecosystem. So our wish is if we can be included in whatever program that is taking place in the department so that people can learn more about bees, and we are also contributing to the economy, biodiversity economy, because we are selling honey, we are selling medicinal products, we are selling cosmetics. So if we can be brought on board, we'll appreciate that.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. I think there was one hand at the back.
Okay. Ke a leboga bagolo. My name is Maimani Diale from the Velfagal CPA. I'm the secretary of the Velfagal CPA. I share my chairperson's sentiments there. Although my question question is slightly different in the department in young. Minister Hore, is there maybe programs that you are implementing in the rural areas that speak to recycling and waste? Because what seems to be happening in the rural areas is there's no dumping sites, so people dump everywhere. So I feel, if you, as the department, if you were to implement facilities for waste and recycling or dumping sites or recycling sites, to then and also have an incentive, for recycling like tins and bottles, because at the moment, places for recycling are very far. So people in the rural areas, obviously, they end up just dumping everywhere. So cows and livestock, they eat all of these things that are just thrown everywhere. So it's more of a question as well. And I feel if maybe SMMEs were empowered to run these programs, it would also add to, maybe let's say leather. I'll use an example of leather. Leather, after we all know there's maso, there's weddings, and people always just throw away, animal skins. So I think if maybe there's facilities where they can take these things to, it could maybe help a bit. So that's my question and statement.
All right. Thank you, thank you, thank you very much. Thank you. We need to be wrapping up. We are over by almost 10 minutes. So what we will do, because as you can see tomorrow, we still have got enough time deal with to discuss these issues. If you go to session 5, it's almost like a rehash, but a very focused, where we're gonna deliberate very much on these issues. So I would allow you, acting chair, to express your views, but then after that, I'm gonna close to allow people to go and refresh. But I don't want to lose the questions that you wanted to raise, those other hands. Please note them down so that tomorrow when we go to that session, we start with you. All right.
Okay. I think you all know who I am because I was there in front to talk on people and parks. I'm Lizzie Musue. Mine is not a question as such, but a comment. Comment number 1 is to say, we have seen people that are private and doing wildlife ranching. What is happening in giving the information or sharing the training with the black owners that received land that was given back to them? Because they feel they are not recognized, and I think their non-recognition is because there's nothing that the government is actually engaging them in trying to do skills transfer and also facilitating the process of them being there. The second thing is that from Ntate Makena, I got worried when he stood up and had to say for himself that he actually struggled to get experiential learning. So I'm saying, if we want to have more people who would be actually professionals, what are we doing to have facilities that would allow people to do practical experience? And secondly, there was a presentation that was done. What we picked up from that presentation, it was said that when the department sent people for training for professional hunting, they send them for a short period where they spend money for people to do a short course when actually the course is more than a year. So I'm saying, what is us doing to make sure that we train people that are interested and sponsor them with money to be able to be trained as professionals?
Thank you very much. Bebe, do you want to respond to the one on leather? Oh.
And thank you again. So during my presentation, there was actually a point on the lack of seamless coordination within sectors. I chose not to speak about it because I'm not from Northwest and I know nothing of the coordination here. But after the madam here spoke about it, I would like to suggest that, of course, I know the department obviously has ways of improving coordination, but in the work that I'm doing in my PhD, I'm using a framework that is called the One Health Framework, which is basically an approach that believes, or that is built on the idea that human health, wildlife health or animal health, and environmental health are somehow interconnected. So much that if you take care of one aspect or one sector, it ends up taking care of the other. So I would encourage the citizens of Northwest to try and implement the principles of the One Health framework, because it recognizes the interconnectedness between stakeholders. So if it is implemented, of course, implementation will be now based on people as individuals. But if collaboration is shared within sectors through the principles of that framework, you could be guaranteed of better results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me look at my speakers. We are concluding now. There is a comment by bee pollinators and processors of honey. What a wonderful initiative. If you look at the National Biodiversity Economy Strategy today, you can go and Google it, the one which is in the space. It recognizes that work, but it also recognizes us to look at all these insects like Mopane worms and that whole list, so that we begin to do what the Botswanas are doing. Botswanas have mastered the production of Mopane worms, such that they are tradable, they are investable, and they are marketable. So that is one area. I'm not sure, Paul, is there an area you want to touch on? And Colin, if you are here, Colin Engelbrecht. You covered? Okay, let's go to the commission.
No, thank you very much, Chair. I think Mutumi has posed a very important point when she says owners of the land are not benefiting, but everybody in the value chain benefit from the park. It's a very, very heavy statement. But I think it will be fair for us to provide this feedback, because we were intending to provide them this feedback in a formal session. What we did, that's why you see things changing. When the MEC came and she was appointed as the MEC, we felt it was very important as the commission to go and brief the MEC about the work of the commission in the Northwest Province and the challenges that the CPAs are facing. The first thing that we spoke of is a non-implementation of the core management. Even if it is implemented, the beneficiation aspect is not that much tangible. The second thing that we presented to the MEC is the grants that are available in various CPA, including yourself, Mutumi, and for Velgefal. We also highlighted the MEC, the pilot project that the Messi Ndibenyane was talking about when she said that Pilanesberg was one of the pilot projects to implement settlement models under conservation. So MEC is quite clued up about those issues. We also informed the MEC about the transactional advisor that you worked with as communities to develop a master plan within Pilanesberg and identify potential projects that the CPAs can implement. Then the decision of the MEC was this: there must be a memorandum of understanding between the commission and the department. She believes that, like the Messi Ndibenyane highlighted, that the commission role is only to receive claim and settle them, but the implementation of the post-settlement support must be dependent on the State Department. So for Northwest Province, MEC is highlighting. That's why towards the end of when she left, she went to the podium and said, Rebohat, we are waiting for the MOU, but we will not be able to conclude that MOU to tell you, because we will regard them as specialists under conservation and other role players who are here under biodiversity to help us to implement, because we don't want to do mistakes that we did. Because my expect only is how to settle a claim and give you a title deed. But Northwest Parks Board, tourism, biodiversity role players are very key to make sure that they implement those projects. So we have identified it, and HOD is here every financial year. That's why she said, and if you listen to her carefully, she said, we will not be able to live here if the strategic planning session of Northwest Parks Board and Tourism and the department does not have indicators that will make sure that communal property associations are benefiting. So we will be calling a session, a separate session of those CPAs with the MEC and present the budget, and then those who are technical, they will be able to tell us on how we move forward with the implementation. I hope tomorrow when Advocate Matukani present, she will be presenting all those projects and what are our intentions in terms of prioritizing them for the financial years. Thank you.
Thank you very, very much, Commissioner. Colleagues and our principals and leadership, it has been a productive day for all of us. We are more wiser than we were yesterday, all of us. And we want to thank you for these sessions that ensued. We're going to be having some announcements now because we are on a journey even tomorrow and a little bit of Saturday. So please, let's allow the announcements quickly and then we wrap up this session. Let's show her some appreciation, please.
Good afternoon. Just a few announcements from my side. Dinner, the formal dinner will take place at 6:30 at Warriors Hall. Kindly note that this dinner is for those that have RSVP'd, so it is for those that have confirmed attendance. Warriors Hall is just on your left as we exit the convention center. And then on Sunday, there is Kasi Ride here in Sun City. It is a mental health awareness campaign. It's the general manager's Sun City's Kasi Ride. So they have requested us to inform you that they have reopened registration. So the Kasi Ride is a 43-kilometer cycling, 21-kilometer cycling, 10-kilometer and 21-kilometer running. So they have requested us to inform you that registration has reopened until midnight tonight. So it's free entry for everyone that's interested. Please, we encourage you, DEDECT, we are a partner to this initiative. We request you that those that stay in the area or those that will be in Sun City until Sunday to kindly participate. Tomorrow we are going to start at 10 o'clock here in King's Hall, the 25th. And then we have 2 lost items, the Kia car keys. They have informed me that they have taken them to the Convention Center Security Office. And then we have shades that were found at the ladies' bathroom. Thank you, Ntate Matibe.
Thank you so much. That then concludes our day, except that we are now going to be refreshing those who can refresh before we proceed to the event tonight at 6:30 at the venue which the announcer, oh yes, come.
Okay, I have received new information from Mr. Denga. Everyone that is here is welcome at the dinner at the Warriors Hall tonight.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. All right. This session is dismissed. See you at the dinner. Thank you.